Welcome, everybody, to the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Harding, and today I got two guests with me here. The Pack Jones and Associates team, and we got DJ Jones and Joel Pack, and they are here to join us, and we're excited to have them. So
thanks for having us.
They top 0.5% of Berkshire Hathaway as far as teams go. I mean, so these guys are doing a good amount of volume, doing very well. Very successful team. Both been in the industry for a little while. Totaling about 10 years between the two of them. Anyhow, good guys. So let's kind of get to know you guys real quick here. So let's start. Either one of you guys can answer, but go ahead and just tell us about yourself. So a little bit, little intro.
Lead the way. You're more interesting.
I'm Joel Pack. I've spent most of my years in the music industry. Actually, we talked about that a little bit before we got started. But I started Rigby Road Studios. It's a recording studio in Salt Lake that services primarily the local rock music community. And I started that because, I'd spent my college savings on a recording experience that was like the worst thing ever, and thought that we could do a better job here in Utah. And so we do that. I was in a signed band for a while as well. Had a record deal and all of that. And then got into real estate. I've had some really great experiences in real estate, buying and selling homes of my own over the last 20 years, and some really terrible experiences that reminded me of those terrible experiences in the recording studio getting started. Sure. And I thought, hey, maybe I can help some of the underserviced clients. I mean, even especially in the music community. Sure. Who maybe some people who are allergic to salespeople or allergic to real estate industry salespeopeople in specific.
You can kind of speak their language. I mean, that's you, right? I mean, you're more music and stuff like that.
Totally.
You got you can walk and talk like them, I guess, right?
Yes. And so that's what got me in, and I got introduced to DJ actually as a fellow musician, and so we've gotten along really well.
Yeah, it worked out well.
So tell us about you.
So I'm DJ. My background was in music as well. A much less cool version of music. I got a degree in classical voice.
Gotcha.
And
not
music,
so much rock. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I know rock is what I would want to sing, but my voice just doesn't work for it, and I can't hit those notes.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so I got a degree in classical voice and a music education degree, and so the plan was to be a high school choir teacher, but just didn't have the passion once I got in the schools. I loved the aspect of music that I really loved was getting to connect on a very personal level with people. Yeah. And as a musician, you spend all your time going out and meeting people and networking, and that's kind of how you get around. So the part I always really liked was creating those personal relationships, and that was I knew our broker through our old broker. Knew him personally, and he convinced I was actually studying to take the LSAT because didn't really want to teach in schools, so I was looking for some other routes, and he talked me into trying real estate about 8 years ago, and it's stuck. Yeah. But met Joel, and actually it worked out really well because when I met Joel, he was super hesitant about joining a team. Yeah. And just kind of hesitant about realtors because, like he said, he had some bad experiences in the past. But one thing we really clicked on was, and part of the reason, we've both been musicians, we've both had experiences with I'm sure you've seen the studies where realtors are held in about the same regard as used car salesmen. Yeah.
I have seen that.
Yeah. Don't love that, and I don't I have a salesperson allergy too. So we got along really well in that we kind of our team philosophy is more hey, we're here to actually help people. We're not here to sell people. Yeah. And that's obviously been going well. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time now, and that's awesome. Okay, well, I like the background. So the music background, that's the connection there between the two of you and stuff. So, okay, awesome. Well, so on your team, so again, you talked to me a little bit before we started, but tell me, on your team right now, you have how many agents then? So we have 3 of us, Joel, me, and Mariana Cabinets, who just recently relocated to St. George, so she's doing all of our business down there.
Yeah, she's been killing.
She's a rock star. Yeah, she's Ukrainian, and she is just the nicest human you'll ever meet in your life.
That's awesome. She's great. How long has she been in real estate for?
She's been in it about the same time as me. Yeah, I think 7 8 years, something like that.
7 8 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So good amount of time. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, you guys have been killing it, doing well. What would you attribute your success to? What makes you guys successful? I mean, why why you guys as opposed to other realtors?
I would just kind of almost echo our earlier kind of comment about we treat our clients like family.
Sure.
And our information is free until we can help somebody out with something that makes sense. And DJ's always talking about how he's talking his clients out of more houses than he's talking them
It's usually
into.
my go-to line in the first meeting with clients. Like,
don't buy this. Don't buy
yeah,
this.
I don't want you to buy just any house. I want you to buy the right house for you.
Sure.
But I think that I think that's been a big thing. Is if we can be the go-to people that people feel confident and comfortable calling, that they're not going to get a sales pitch at the other end of the call where it's just like, I think I might want to buy or sell a house, but I'm not sure yet. I might be a couple years off, but I just have questions, and I don't want to go to Google and get sold a bunch of stuff. I want to talk to a friend who knows a lot about it. I think us just being those people on our sphere of influences, quick dial, being those people, I think has been really advantageous to us.
And then adding into that the element of like we know that this is like our job. We're dealing with these huge transactions, possibly the most important transaction for most people and the biggest transaction in most people's lifetimes. So we take that very seriously, and because of that, like we do a lot of education. We try to stay up on the latest happenings on what's happening in the market, stay right at the forefront of all of that, as well as knowing those contracts inside and out, knowing the different like negotiation techniques. Though we're pretty straightforward. We're not trying to I don't even think of it as negotiations. It's more of like a conversation to make sure everybody gets the best outcome.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
And I guess, and you kind of mentioned this in what you just said, but like how important do you think continually learning in this industry is? I mean, why is that important, I guess? Isn't it just the same as it's always been,
That's the most important. If it would be the same as it had always been if they weren't always changing contracts. And I don't know if you've ever seen, we have at Berkshire, some of the education stuff they'll do is like they printed out a booklet with all of the forms, and it's about 1.5 inches thick.
Wow.
Like it's a lot of different legal forms you have to be familiar with. You have to know the whole process back and forward.
And every week they're tossing us a new one. Here's the updated, here's the updated form based on this. And also I think this is one thing I think both of us can appreciate coming from a music background is like things are constantly changing, not just from a legal perspective and a forms perspective, but from a market perspective as well. And we're always saying, nobody has a crystal ball, and if you're up, on a daily or weekly basis on what's happening in the market, what's happening with the forms, those forms are changing for a reason, and the reason is typically the market, and they're following the market. And the old Wayne Gretzky thing, you're not going to where the puck is, you're trying to go to where the puck's going to be. And if we're not up on market trends and the forms, and we're talking to our clients and our friends about real estate, and they're talking to us about, well, here's what's going on with our family, or here's what's going on in our personal life. Is this what makes sense? We can kind of help them better understand that, rather than maybe their neighbor who hasn't had a transaction in 1.5 years but knows how to fill out the forms as they were 1.5 years ago.
But because it's constantly changing, it's not really going to help you much.
No.
Sure. Well, okay, so let's stick on that topic. You mentioned the market and stuff like that. Obviously, the last couple of years we've had a huge market, right? I mean, where things were just selling, immediately, right? Listed on Thursday, it's sold by Sunday, right? Tell me, how has the market shifted? Well, let's start there. How's the market shifted? Where's the market at?
We're getting into nerdy stuff now. This is my jam. Yeah. So we actually just posted on our Instagram last week. So it's really interesting because 2020 and 2021 were just total outliers. Like they were the hottest market I think we've probably ever seen.
And probably ever seen in our lives.
Right. 28% appreciation is not normal. It's awesome if you're a homeowner. Not so awesome if you're a first-time home buyer.
Correct.
But what's happening now is, we're kind of seeing it. I posted all the numbers of like under contract and active listings, back up all of that stuff. This year versus last year, if you look at that, you would think the sky is falling. You would think, and that's what we're constantly talking people off the ledge with, is like, well, houses are staying on the market 4 times as long now. 4 times as long as 2 weeks. So people are freaking out. But if you look at these numbers right now, they're almost identical to the numbers from 2019, 2017, 2018, 2016. I don't know why I jumped around there. That was weird. But
So, but
those were all hot years.
Okay.
We were still getting double-digit appreciation each of those years. Not that I think we've kind of priced some of that double-digit appreciation out.
Sure.
But it's still a pretty normal, like on the hot side of normal market right now.
So you're not seeing a crash. You're not seeing,
I see a leveling.
Okay.
I don't think it'll crash anytime soon, but I think it'll level out a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That that's kind of what we've been finding too. Is it's things are pulling back, right? Offers are not 50,000 over asking price anymore, right? Sellers are a little more realistic, like, hey, we're not trying to sell it for so high, right? I mean, so there is that kind of change happening, right? So kind of on that note, what advice would you have for somebody entering the market for the first time, first-time home buyer? Let's start with first-time home buyers. What advice would you have for a first-time home buyer right now?
Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Don't freak out, okay? Yeah.
My main thing is first-time home buyers, if they're looking at what the market's doing and what it's done or whatever, first-time home buyers should be, maybe concerned just a little bit with what the market's doing. This is a life change for them. They need to look at this as a long-term investment, not what's the market going to do in the next 6 months.
Sure.
Hopefully they'll be living in this home for at least 3 years and maybe as long as 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
Trying to play the market as a first-time home buyer. I've only been in the industry a few years, but I don't see that going well for most first-time home buyers. You do what's right. You do what makes sense for your finances and your income. You try and find a place that's going to be good for you and your family or yourself, geographically, financially, and for me, it's like every time I've kind of made that scary leap into buying a home and it felt a little bit uncomfortable. It's like a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I'm always like, man, am I glad I didn't wait.
Sure.
Most of the times I'm like, I've got tattoos and stuff. I say this as well, like a year later I was like, man, I should have went a little bigger. And a lot of times, that's been the same thing with real estate investment. I mean, even if you're going to live in the home, it's an investment. It's still a real estate investment. And a lot of times, like if you were a homeowner in this last 2 years, that house was making you more money than a lot of times your job was making for you.
Sure.
Sure.
So that's very true for most people.
Yeah, and especially for first-time home buyers, as long as you're being you're not going to 49% DTI, you're not really pushing yourself. That's always my advice for first-time home buyers: is make sure that you're well within, you're not over your ski tips.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But yeah, for right now, I've just by nature of being younger, we work with a lot of first-time home buyers.
Sure.
And what I'm finding is, especially millennials, we all lived through the Great Recession, and I'm hearing that's largely the people that I'm hearing saying, well, what if housing prices come down 25%? Then I just lose all my money.
Sure.
They've got PTSD from the Great Recession. And, interest rates are so high right now. They're in the low fives. That's still below the historic average.
I know, right?
So, we're just used to 3% from the last, 3 years. But these are still, I know prices went up. Your payment's going to be a little bit more than it would have been 2 years ago. But that's payment. It's like a forced savings account, right?
Yeah.
That's the term that we always use in real estate.
Yeah.
So it's an investment, not it's not Dogecoin that you're going to flip in 2 months and.
Which luckily it's not, right?
Yeah, right.
That's a little too volatile for my taste.
Yeah.
What advice? So let's move to sellers then. What advice would you guys have for somebody selling in this market? Should they wait? Should they try to sell now? What advice would you guys give?
I'll let you talk. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah, and I again would echo my previous, statement about what's going on in your life. I get calls. I was on the phone this morning with my friend who's going through a divorce and trying to figure out, do I try to buy my ex-wife out of our equity? Do I sell and buy a new place? I don't know what I'm doing. I personally went through a divorce almost 20 years ago, and I lost tens of thousands of dollars. I left so much money on the table because I didn't have somebody to call and walk me through the scenarios. It's just like, all right, let's go through the numbers and see what makes sense and make an informed decision. Here are your 2 or 3 options of different things you can do and what makes sense for your life. because 9 times out of 10, that's what it comes down to. What do you want your life to look like in 3 months or 6 months or a year from now? And try to make the decisions based on those. These things like what the market's doing right now, or what the interest rate is like, or what the turnover is on houses on the market. These are obstacles that we're going to navigate as we're getting to the end point.
Yep.
It's not the reason for making a life move or not.
Sure.
Yeah. So, kind of carrying on with that, I mean, also kind of, reiterating what we've been talking about the whole time. We think of ourselves more as like advisors than as salespeople.
Yeah.
So, it's not uncommon for us to talk people out of selling. I just last week was talking to a friend whose wife got relocated for work. He's looking at selling his house. And I ran through him with what his house could rent for versus what his monthly payment is. And he's moving to the Midwest where he can buy a house for really cheap.
Yeah.
And they think they eventually may want to end up back in Utah. So I was like,
Gotcha.
why? You should not sell your house.
Sure.
You should rent it, cash flow $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that can pay your mortgage in Mississippi for a big, ridiculous house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
That's
as far as if you are selling your house, the advice right now is don't get too crazy on it. Make sure you're working with somebody that's going to give you realistic statistics, because houses are still selling fast. This afternoon, I'm working through multiple offers on a listing just put up in Provo. Last listing had multiple offers, and that's still happening if you price it appropriately.
Okay.
You can't price it 10% higher like you could 6 months ago.
So pricing it right is actually probably more important than ever then, right? Because you're saying it is still selling multiple offers even, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. And what price ranges were those that you were looking
They're
at?
in like the 4, 5, 600.
Okay, so that kind of,
so in the
Sure,
kind of the
yeah.
average price range.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. What about somebody that wants to build a home? What advice would you guys have for, hey, should I build a home? It's 6 months, 12 months out. What's I'm concerned about that, right? Should I do that?
Let's go talk to the builder together.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, building a home can be a great play if you have somewhere to be while it's building. Especially the last few years, I've had multiple new builds where they built the home. By the time they actually moved into the home, they had $50,000 to $70,000 of equity in the house.
Gotcha.
And they never lived in it.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
some of those they actually owned their previous homes too. So they were building equity on 2 houses at the same time without paying for one of them, which is great. But once again, it all just comes down to timeline. Where are you in life? What do you need, and when do you need it?
And also with that, the thing that I feel like a lot of, especially if they've never built a home before, things that sometimes they don't realize is that the interest rate in 9 months or 8 months or 6 months when their home's going to be built is different than it is today.
Yeah.
So just be prepared for that. And
What are you telling people?
It's a variable that they need to be cognizant of.
Yeah. No, that's good advice. Yeah. It's and what we're saying, I guess, with interest rates, in all honesty, I think they're going to stay kind of in this general area where they're at now.
Yeah.
The highest they hit was like 6.5, right?
Yeah.
Now they've kind of come back into the low 5s, maybe even high 4s. I mean, kind of in that ballpark. My guess is they're going to hit maybe high 5s again, but I don't see them going like 6, 7, 8%.
We're not going to be mid-80s, 15%.
No, not at all. No, and in fact, we're kind of predicting, I guess, which obviously no one knows the future, but in the next couple of years, rates might fall, and then we can refinance a bunch of people. These people that are buying homes at this price range and stuff. But
that's the other thing too. It's like people who it's like, okay, well, do I buy today or do I wait and see what interest rates do? And it's like, yeah, okay, if interest rates go down, you can refinance, and if they don't, you'll be glad you locked it in when you did.
Yeah, I bought my current house in 2018, and I've refinanced twice.
Sure.
Because why not?
Yeah, why not?
I had to buy my rate down to 4.75, and I have good credit and all that. I had a good rate.
Yeah.
Still had to buy it down to 4.75. So,
Gotcha.
like I said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Like, this is looking a lot like 2018, 2019.
It is. Yeah. No. Well, that's good. I like that you brought up those stats and stuff like that. So 2020, 2021, just kind of ignore those.
They were outliers.
Hey, if you had a house, great. If not,
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing you guys say is it's still a good time to buy. And really, as far as, those 3 questions for builders, buyers, or listing, it sounds like you guys really do take a personal approach, right? I mean, really kind of going in, like, hey, let's figure out what makes sense for you, right? If you're getting a divorce, well, okay, yeah, you're probably forced to do this, right? And so, but which I like, right? And so I guess that kind of leads me to another question here, which I think you're kind of showing me how I would answer for you if I did, but tell me how you guys care about your clients. How do you show them that you care? Or maybe you don't care.
Yeah, we don't.
No, I think I'll
care about that commission.
That's right.
Totally kidding.
Going into each, whether it's a I hate calling them listing presentations, or marketing presentations, or whatever, pricing whatever you call them.
Yeah.
We typically call it lunch or coffee or whatever.
Sure.
Just make sure that we go into it curious.
Okay.
Go into each of those conversations curious, not with an outcome in mind that we're trying to get to.
Sure.
But just always be trying to learn, and if we're talking to a potential client, that we're trying to learn what it is they're trying to do, and then how can we help them.
Yeah. And so going back to, like I said, part of the reason I like this business is because you create personal relationships. Like, I've met some of my best friends by helping them buy houses. That really feeds into what do we do to like care about our clients. When we have these personal relationships and we genuinely care about them as people, we're not going to be, we always joke about, I'm sure you've heard the term commission breath.
Yeah.
Where you can tell when somebody's really hungry for a sale and they'll try and get you to buy whatever you
Yeah. They've already picked out the truck.
Exactly. Yeah. So we focus real hard on never having commission breath, and we genuinely care about our clients, and we try to show that through like giving them good advice, treating them like family is kind of in our mission statement.
Sure.
But also we do like twice a year client events because we want to see everybody. It's fun. We're always taking old clients out to lunch. We're always trying to see them as much as we can because we genuinely care about them.
Yeah. What talking about client events, what kind of things have you done there?
We've been doing we usually do like we'll rent out a movie theater twice a year.
That's obviously a good one. Love that. Yeah.
And then we also do like charity work. And,
I think the other thing that's fun is like we have our team fund, and we put a lot of that back into for DJ's birthday we took in a ton of food to the food bank,
Nice.
Or
awesome.
We donate a lot to the I forget the acronym,
International Rescue Committee, IRC. Every year
that helps
refugees.
They'll match a down payment for refugee families, and it was cool this last year. It was really cool to be on the listing side of some buyers of an IRC buyer.
Nice.
And man, my sellers were just so stoked to be a part of that, and I think our clients are stoked to see. They're stoked to see that we're trying to do things in the community that are going to help people who are maybe a little bit less fortunate, hopefully get into some housing.
You mentioned one of the and I'm sorry I forgot her name, but the one in St. George, she's from Ukraine.
Mariana.
Yeah, Mariana. Yeah. So obviously Ukraine, we know that whole thing going on.
Yeah.
Does she have connections there? Anything with that?
We've been trying to figure out some ways to. So she's working on making some connections with some like International Rescue Committee is doing a lot in Ukraine. We donate more to the local chapter that's really working in the community. But
and we're working on some things with her person. We probably can't talk about yet, but we're working on some things with her person someone that are going to be that's a lot more localized.
That's awesome. Good. So you're trying to so you're not just I love that. And I guess as far as is that kind of some part of what inspires you guys with your job? I mean, obviously you really love your job, you enjoy that, right? And so does that help with work, I guess, to kind of go to have alternative avenues to try to help people and stuff like that? I mean,
it's good motivation. I mean, luckily with real estate, like when you do well, the compensation is pretty good, and so I love to feel like I don't want to be greedy ever.
I'm with you. Yeah,
and not just that, like that, and also. We spend so much time going like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing for marketing this week? Okay, what are we doing for reaching out? What are we doing for follow up and all these things? And it's like sometimes a lot of what we're doing too is like I'm waiting to hear back from this listing agent. Or I'm waiting to hear whatever it is, and sitting at the office going like, okay, like, let's go to Costco and pick up a bunch of food and drop it off at the food bank.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's something. It's a good way to spend the time to feel like we're doing something. That's moving the ball forward, while sometimes it feels like we're waiting for some of all this other stuff to happen.
Which, ideally, you mentioned marketing. Ideally, you can kind of use some of this charitable stuff as part of your marketing too.
Totally.
Right? I mean, if you can, I've always thought that's, this good business, I guess, in the sense of, you see shows where they build homes, but, the different companies will, sponsor it, right? And, and it's like, hey, that's good business. I mean, it's still helping somebody, sure, and they're getting free advertising, right?
For sure.
So, I mean, I think if you can balance both business and charity, hey, that's a win for the community, right? I mean, you're helping everybody, right?
Totally.
So, Well, okay. So as far as goals go, where do you guys see yourself in 5-10 years as far as your team and stuff like that? I mean, any goals there? Have you thought about that? Or hey, now's the time to set some goals here.
Yeah, the goal is always to sell more houses. We set so every year we do a planning session at the very end of the year for the next year, and each year that number of homes sold grows. And with that, I mean, for me personally, going back to the charity thing, when we were kind of making the team back in the day, I wanted to make sure that charitable part was one of the core tenets of the team.
Sure.
And so as we grow, we can start giving back even more to the community. So
Gotcha.
I mean, last year we did like $10,000 to local charities, which is fun. I'd love to grow that to where we're doing 30 or 40 or 50,000 a year to local charities.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean that's a big part of like why I want to grow, because like I was a musician before this. I can be comfortable on very little money.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, we the three of us don't have a super long history with investment properties, but it's something we're all getting into more recently. And I think that's another thing that we'd all like to see is have a kind of grow our investment property portfolio.
Yeah, I love that.
On the selfish end. Sure. I mean, hey, maybe a team retreat property. There we go.
I like it.
Don't tempt me. He knows I've already been looking at Bear Lake properties.
Yeah,
So.
I like it.
Turn our client appreciation events into client appreciation weeks up at Bear Lake.
Yeah, there we go.
I like it. I got one up in Island Park, Idaho, near
nice.
Yellowstone and stuff.
I'm from Montana originally. I go.
Yeah, so you've been. Yeah.
Oh, I'm there all the time.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's a fun house. The winter and summer's fun. So anyhow, so I'm with you. I like that idea. Yeah. I think that's good. As we kind of conclude here, any favorite stories that stand out? Obviously, in your history of doing real estate and stuff like that, any things stand out that's worth sharing?
No, there's nothing that really like stands. I personally, I know a lot of agents don't like working with first-time home buyers because they tend to freak out about stuff. Like,
fair enough.
And when you're going through your first home inspection and you're buying a house from 1940, you're gonna freak out. It's terrifying. Yeah. But I kind of love being the person going through that with them and helping them say like, hey, this seems like a huge deal right now. You're not even gonna remember that inspection item in a year. And helping them get into, I've just seen so many of my clients get into homes that are freaking out about it right then, and then 2 years later they have $70,000 of equity, and they feel more secure than they ever have.
Yeah.
And man, handing off keys to first-time home buyers is like
so psyched.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the benefit of first-time home buyers. Some people don't like working with them. I actually love working with them because they're a lot more willing to learn, right?
Yes.
Maybe a little more humble, right? Somebody that owns several homes, like, hey, I already know what I'm doing. I don't need your help, right? But that first-time home buyer, they're fun to work with in that regard. So, handing the keys, like, it's like giving your, kid chocolate for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is good,
Totally.
So. Well, good. Well, how can listeners find you? What's the best way to find you guys? Just
look up Pac Jones and Associates. You'll find us everywhere. You'll see a bunch of goofy music videos because we still like to incorporate the music stuff sometimes.
We have a YouTube channel where we've been doing more. We do one music video a month.
Nice.
Of some of your favorite hits from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll be kind of a far cousin reach to something that has to do with real estate. For example, our last one we did, Don't You Forget About Me.
Okay.
That was made popular by the Breakfast Club movie. And so all right, referrals.
We're trying to keep it fun.
I gotcha. Have those been successful for you guys as far as marketing goes, or?
Well, we're having a lot of fun.
Okay, there we go.
People see them. We can't directly attribute any sales to them. It's all just staying in front of who we know.
Well, and that's the key, right? I mean, it's and that's why we do a lot of this stuff is just your network, right? Staying in front of them. Hey, remind me, I exist. I do loans, I do real estate, right? That's what you're trying to do. So, well, good. Any concluding thoughts? Anything we didn't cover that you guys wanted to hit?
No, you're pretty thorough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thanks, Joel. Thanks, DJ, for coming on. It's been good to get to know you guys and see what you guys are doing well and stuff. So, everybody, thank you for listening, and like us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, all these different places. Write us a review if you can. We'd love that, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.